unbelievable spring day here in Bellingham, and the transition crew just provided us with their new Spire 170 travel big mountain brawler. Talking to the guys in the showroom about this bike, we're looking to make a big bike that can handle just about anything, that still manages to scoot around. Not too hard to climb, not too big to discourage any kind of big days pedaling. So this bike is kind of a interesting story when it comes to climbing, because it is a big bike. It's got some serious presence. It's a little heavy, just being a 170 bike. But at the same time, the crazy thing about this bike is just how pleasant it is on the heinous steep climbs that we have in this area. It just has a good amount of reach, good amount of chainstay, steeper C-tube angle, and it just feels like such a mountain goat. Maybe not a lightweight mountain goat, but it's just so stable. Like, I've got up some of the toughest single track climbs in town on this bike with relative ease. It's because you don't really have to worry about your weight transfer. You just keep your butt in the saddle and just crank. And in addition to the very stable climbing geometry, it's also got a little bit more pedal platform, than a little bit more in the way of some anti-squat action when you're out of the saddle. But nice thing about this bike is you just keep your butt in the saddle and mash out some gnarly climbs. And it's just so comfortable. The Spire is like a special example of what kind of steep hills a big 29er can winch up with the right geometry. For the kind of genre of bike this is, they got some nice geometry going on, like a 486 reach and a 63 head tube angle in the high setting, which I've been riding this bike in, and an effective 78 degree C-tube angle, which, man, just feels right. Feels very right out here. Oh boy, oh boy. I have to let this bike do what it was meant to do. Yeah, buddy. Woo! It's like a little tree down reroute there. Oh my gosh. Yeah, already feeling real stable on this thing. Woo! Just feels so good at speed. The dirt is fast and dry as far as the Northwest goes. Yeah, this thing is very stable. It's got a really kind of chunky feeling chassis. And with that 38 paired with a really kind of meaty feeling chassis, this bike just has a really planted feel to it. And I'm glad that they spec this bike with 2.4-inch tires so you can really feel just how good the suspension actually is. I mean, it is a big wheelbase, it's a big chainstay, but on fast trails, you know, once you get it up to speed, this big thing is pretty dang playful, as long as you're going 20 plus miles an hour. Or if you're on something really steep. I've actually been riding some pretty steep lines on this bike, and it is really loosens the inhibitions, I'll say. Oh my gosh, little taste of the summer conditions. So much traction, I just feel like I can really tug this thing around, get a little weird with it. Yeah, this bike actually really for me has a lot in common with a full out downhill bike. It's just, I think with that 38 on the front, and then yeah, this chassis is just, this frame is just really meaty. It honestly feels just like a 170 downhill bike. And those like narrow tires with those pretty good chunky Schwalbe casings. It's just like, oh man, you just feel like you can push this thing so hard, get a little reckless. And certainly no reason to shy off from the speed with this big rig. So composed. Everything just feels so dampened and just kind of like high quality. Yeah! Oh, this bike is absolutely loving this wide open fast trail. It's pretty fun to preload this bike off of these little trail features today too. It's got like a slightly playful side to it. I had some issues riding this bike on like steep but slower speed, technical, tight windy trails. But here where it's like open and high speed, it's just something else. It's just like you're totally unleashing the beast to do what it just wants to do, which is just smooth out the world ahead of you. Woo! All right, little Schwalbe. Sometimes I think these longer chainstay bikes are a little harder to Schwalbe, but when you get your speed up, it starts getting a little bit more manageable. Oh, so solid through there. Those repetitive hits, just nothing. I think this rough little patch here won't, yeah. This thing just friggin' smooths out the gnarliest trails. Really gives you that downhill bike feeling. I think one of the more interesting parts of like how this bike rides is it, with that longer wheelbase, it seems like the weight distribution between the two wheels is just really even. So when you're like weighting the bike, or like cornering the bike and just maneuvering your weight, it's like there's never really too drastic of weight changes. And there's this really interesting sensation when you like go to lean the bike over. Oh. That you're just like getting a lot of traction mid-corner without having to like squirrel around on the bike too much. Oh my gosh, just insane summery conditions. Oh, all time. Golden rays poking through the forest. Gosh, yeah, it even just like feels so stable through this kind of like pinched off little zone here. Yeah, I've noticed like I ride dirt bikes, motorized dirt bikes in my free time, and this bike, you know, kind of gives you that feeling of like the way the dirt bike rides actually. And by that I mean like you kind of lean it to corner it more than turn the bars. It's just kind of like a very relaxed feeling and just creates such a sense of stability at speed, or when you're worried that little micro adjustments to the handlebars are gonna push you offline. Just kind of chills everything out. Man, yeah, it's just there's such a wide range of room where you can weight yourself between the two wheels, the front and the rear wheel. Just a big pocket to live in, which makes this bike a little bit less playful, but a total friggin' crusher when you're at speed. So who's this bike for? This bike is for the rider that's gonna be traveling at high speeds and down pretty steep trails, that's looking for stability. The rider that still wants a bike that can pedal up a mountain, you know, on a big day if need be. But, you know, they spend a decent amount of time at the bike park and they want to just have a nice big stable bike for getting gnarly and traveling very fast through the forest. So if you like this review, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. And for the full write-up, head on over to freehubmag.com.